The Electro Dragon was no doubt one of the most hated troops within Clash of Clans due to just how strong it was and how easy it was to use, making it a troop anybody could just spam and easily get a 3-star with no actual skill. It remained as extremely notorious for many years, and even Supercell would acknowledge the Electro Dragon. However, they didn't do anything to stop it. However, as of more recently, the Electro Dragon has started to lose its position as the most hated and notorious troop, and it honestly just isn't as feared or talked about anymore. And today we're going to look at how it first became so big and why it is now losing that status. So let's get right into it. The Electro Dragon will come out in June of 2018 with the addition of Town Hall 12. However, it would be unlockable at Town Hall 11, and at the time it was a third dragon troop to exist in the game, with the other two being the normal dragon and the baby dragon, and both of these were pretty good, especially the normal dragon, which really was just dominating the game from Town Hall 7 to about Town Hall 10, and around that point it wouldn't be as effective and people would rather go for the lava loon strategy or something like golems and witches. So when the Electro Dragon came out, it would really add a new dragon that would be able to basically be a successor to the normal dragon, which was still pretty good. However, it wasn't comparable at all with the Electro Dragon. This was really one of the more unique troops in the game at the time, mainly just due to its lightning chain ability that would damage multiple different buildings at once, and this was something that wasn't really even in the game up to this point. You had some troops that did a little bit of splash damage and the bowler that would deal damage in a straight line to maybe 1 or 2 extra buildings, but that was about it. So it's fair to say that this chain ability was definitely very unique, and it is one of the main reasons as to why the Electro Dragon was seen as so powerful and why it would rise to become one of the strongest troops very quickly. This ability would really allow for the dragon to take out defenses while staying out of range of them, which obviously meant it would take less damage, and it would also be really good for other troops. Many of the balloons as Electro Dragons and balloons was really popular because it would mean the balloons could take less damage and would not have to worry about certain defenses, which was good as balloons obviously don't have a lot of HP. Plus, due to people typically having multiple Electro Dragons, having a handful of them all do chain damage at once could really destroy any compartment way faster than any other troops in a similar situation. Plus, just them being dragons overall and being able to simply fly over the base and not have to worry about walls or anything obviously was a big factor, since having a ground troop with that type of ability would obviously be very different. And that another reason for the Electro Dragon initially being so good is with the obvious stuff like health and damage. It had the second highest health out of any air troop, with it obviously being behind the Lava Hound, and as for the damage, it did way more than the normal dragon when you add up the damage it does to all the buildings. Plus, it also does damage when it dies through its lightning strikes. And overall, it is pretty clear that the Electro Dragon was definitely better than the normal dragon. However, it seems like it was too good, which then brings us to the weakness of it, and that's the fact that it was just slow. It had a really slow attack speed, as it would need to wait a bit before using the very powerful chain attack, and it also just moved really slow and is actually among the slowest troops in the game, and that would give it one massive counter, and that was the air sweeper. In specific situations, a single air sweeper could prevent someone from getting a 3-star if they were using Electro Dragons, and this could either be because the air sweeper caused a person to run out of time, or it just gave enough time for the defenses to kill the dragon. However, despite all of that, the Electro Dragon would still be insanely strong at the beginning. However, it wasn't even at its peak despite already being so good. When it came out, there were really only 3 main air attack strategies that the Electro Dragon would actually have to compete against in order to prove that it was better, and this is where the initial rise really was. The first attack strategy was the extremely popular Lava Loon strategy, and this was really just everywhere at the higher town hall levels once people unlocked the Lava Hound. The reason this strategy was so good was because the Lava Hounds targeted air defenses and really were just tanks, and the job of the balloons was obviously to destroy all the defenses while they were protected by the Lava Hound. And this strategy was really easy to use, as it was mostly just spam, and all you had to do was make sure to use the rage and haste spells effectively. and honestly, this attack strategy really would be the main competitor for the Electro Dragons. However, they would still be more favorable for the most part because they were even easier to use than Lava Loon. The second attack strategy was the all dragon attack, and this would be a very easy competition, as if you put all electro dragons versus all normal dragons, then the electro dragons would be able to destroy bases more easily since they did more damage overall and had more health, so this wasn't really a competition. And the same goes to the third attack strategy, which was a combination of dragons and balloons, since if you compare electro dragons and balloons, then they will be better in most situations. So, the Electro Dragons showcasing how they were better than the current attack strategies would cause them to rise up on top, and for the next year or so, the Electro Dragons were used quite a lot, and this is where they would start receiving some hate as people really just saw them as too easy to use for the damage they did. And all of this would really catapult in June of 2020 with the Lightning Spell rework. This rework made it so the Lightning Spell was precise with just one zap instead of 6 random ones, and this would guarantee the amount of damage you did to something, and that would allow people to guarantee that they could destroy all 4 air defenses with just lightning spells, and that would make it even easier to attack and just spam, since now one of the biggest problems for air troops was completely out of the way. And this is what will catapult the Electro Dragon to being the strongest and most hated troop in the game, and roughly this period of time will be where it will peak before facing its downfall. It was so hated because everyone at Town Halls 11 to 13 were using this strategy, and it got really boring really quickly, and it was frustrating for a lot of the players as they were just saying the game had become a joke and that it was too easy now. And as a reminder, through all this time and even till today, Supercell is not actually directly of the Electro Dragons, which is really interesting. But anyways, after about a few months of this, the Electro Dragons would start to fade a little bit with the introduction of Town Hall 14. They were still really good before this, but at this Town Hall, they would really just not be as viable due to how everything was changing. I mean, defenses here weren't as weak as before, and the Electro Dragons didn't really get any stronger, and this is where you would have more of an emergence of things like the normal dragons and the Lava Loon strategy, since those would just work better as they were definitely more diverse and adaptable. And then at Town Hall 15, the Electro Dragons would be even less used, since this Town Hall was definitely not good for the Electro Dragons or even really any air attacks in general, since at this stage of the game, air attacks were starting to be less popular, and instead ground attacks were really like taking over, with the biggest example being the Hog Rider and Miner hybrid. So at this time, which was like the end of 2022, the Electro Dragon was more so just a troop that was only good between Town Hall 11 and 13, and it was still no doubt the best and strongest troop at that level. However, as people progressed, the Electro Dragon would become pretty rare to actually see, and this is really seen as like the fall off because everyone anticipated that the Electro Dragon would be extremely strong at these Town Halls as well. However, it seemed to really just fall flat at Town Hall 14, and now with Town Hall 16, it is even losing its title as the most hated and most powerful troop in general because of the Root Riders. These have now become the strongest troop in the game just because they can go straight through walls and are extremely tanky and also do decent damage, and just spamming Root Riders is an insanely strong strategy at Town Halls 15 and 16, and they are even extremely game changing at lower Town Halls, where people can use them through the clan castle. The Root Riders have really had a very similar effect on the game as the Electro Dragons did, and that is why they're really taking the spot for becoming the most hated troop in the game, since a ton of people hate how they're literally being used everywhere and how that has been making the game feel stale and boring. So overall, the Electro Dragons weren't really good at the beginning, and they had risen to the top simply because of how strong and easy to use they were, and the Lightning Spell rework will catapult them to the absolute top, which would really cause them to become the most hated troop in the game due to how widely used they were. However, their downfall will begin as newer town halls started to come out and Electro Dragons weren't really able to keep up with how they were getting stronger, which will lead to them essentially dying out at the higher town halls, though they would still be extremely strong at the lower town hall levels and would still be considered the most hated troop in the game. However, with the introduction of the Root Riders at town hall 16, the Electro Dragons will lose their position as the strongest and most hated troop in the game, and that is what would essentially lead to them falling off and no one really talking about them anymore. But that's it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed and I'll see you all in the next one.